principle which involves codifying a set of ideas into a formal document is so done to ensure that there is no subjectivity in the way that you administer enforcement of those rules, right? So, from the smallest code books of an apartment complex to the richness of the Indian Constitution, no matter at what kind of level you are operating, you need to formalize things so that nobody can be accused of being subjective in the manner that a particular ethical idea or legal idea is interpreted. The ASCI Code, in a sense, is an acknowledgement of this need to formalize principles. The code is needed for a variety of reasons, but let me try to summarize them. Most importantly, the code is needed before the fact. This here is the code book, all right? The code book is also available in a virtual form on the ASCI website, but ASCI will be more than happy to send you a copy of the code book should you desire it. I think I would advise strongly, if you are in the marketing communication business, this should be one of the essential pieces of document right on your desk at all times. Why is it required? It is required before the fact, as in, before you start working on any piece of brand communication, you should ensure that the chapters in the code are being adhered to, right? There's truthfulness, there's decency, there's fairness, and there's legality, and you should know that what you are saying is compliant with what the code says, so that there is no boo-boo later on, all right? So this is the before the fact. There is a during the fact. While you are producing the campaign, at each stage of the campaign, please be aware and conscious that everything that you're doing is still compliant. It is not only in the level of theory, but as you are now executing, that it is being done the right way. Finally, it is when it goes out into the media. Even choice of media can sometimes cause a problem, right? So there are things called watershed hours. I don't want to talk much about them. You will find out about it yourself. There are certain pieces of advertising communication which belong outside of watershed hours, right? If you air that communication within watershed hours, you are falling foul of the code. So before the process, during the creating process, and after the process when it goes out in the market, at each stage of the process, the formalism of the code, that the code gives you clearly stated rules that you need to be compliant with. And I want to say one more thing before I pass on this one. Think of these not as limiting or confining you, but, you know, in a sense challenging you to say that I can produce great, compelling, convincing brand communication without doing things which are offensive, without doing things which are unfair, or doing things which are untruthful, right? In a sense, it's within constraint that your creativity flowers the best. If you are a chess grandmaster and you're playing for the world title, there are things that you're permitted to do, there are things that you're not permitted to do. If you are running in the Olympics, you cannot be on anabolic steroids. We know what happens when you are on anabolic steroids, right? You have to compete within the norms of the game. This is as true of advertising as it is of the Olympic Games. And the code book which tells you what you need to be compliant with is right here. Advertising is bound to use subjective ideas. Not everything is quantifiable. And in fact, it is when you are in the subjective terrain that it is most crucial to ensure that you do not fall outside the line. You don't draw outside the dots. The code has two parts. One part is the chapters. There are 4 chapters. The second part is a series of guidelines. The chapters first. The chapters are universally applicable. They are applicable to all advertising, and they deal with these following 4, shall we say, pillars of good solid advertising. First one, truthfulness in advertising, that you don't say or portray anything which is patently false, or which is playing with the truth, or which is a half-truth. So everything that you say and portray must be subject to substantiation. You should be able to show that it is really the way it is. The second one is you need to be decent, right? that you adhere to the society's current standards of decency, that you don't say or portray things which are abhorrent to anybody, that cause widespread distress amongst people. The third one, legality, that you do not advertise things which are not permitted to be advertised, or you do not portray things in your advertising which might be unsafe. So, for example, you don't show children engaged in activities which could be perilous to them, right, which could cause them harm. You do not show products and services which are not permitted to be advertised. So, for example, no liquor, no cigarettes, no tobacco products. That's the law of the land. We cannot be found foul of that. And the fourth, and not the least, is that you must be fair in the way that you advertise, that you do not disparage your competitor, that you do not say things about your competitor which are false about the competitor's products or services, right? Or you do not frame the comparison between yourself and the competitor in a manner that gives you an artificial advantage. So this is fairness. These are the 4 chapters. They apply to everything and every single piece of communication. In addition to that, ASCI, because it's an evolving document, this code did not stop growing the way that the day that it was first published. We've had to add a whole series of chapters which are guidelines to specific product categories. Automobiles, don't show things which are rash. Don't show motorcyclists doing wheelies in traffic, right? Basic principle, but needs to be recorded. Food advertising, don't encourage, food behaviors which are unhealthy. Education advertising, do not say things to students which promise them, magical career changes and admissions into universities which cannot be substantiated. So we have a guideline on that. In recent days, influencers are a single biggest phenomenon growing in the marketing communication industry. So we've had to add stuff to tell influencers about what they can and cannot do. For example, influencers, if they are doing a paid promotion, must show that it's a paid promotion. You cannot be promoting a particular brand, saying good things about it, receiving benefits in lieu of whatever you are saying about it, but not telling the consumer. Because the person who is watching what the influencer is creating assumes that what he or she is saying is coming from their own personal experience. So there have been guidelines which have been added over a period of time. The code continuously evolves. The code is an organic document, but the code is a formal document so that any decision that ASCI actually rules on a particular piece of communication can be fully based on a specific point or a specific rule which is already in our code, so that there is no accusation of ambiguity or subjectivity.